Welcome to the True That Show, a show about lifepreneurship presented with wit, humor, and banter by Deborah Drummond and Caroline Blanchard. A lifepreneur is someone who's living life the way an entrepreneur runs their business. All in. Lifepreneurs are rock stars. Lifepreneurs are people who are brave, who risk, who live full on, who think out of the box, who win this thing called life. Lifepreneurs are around us every day. They are everyday heroes. Join Deborah and Caroline, these two stage-walking women who tell it like it is. You'll learn from the most incredible lifepreneurs who will inspire you to be the best version of you. Now here are your hosts.
Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this week. Deborah, hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fantastic. We have another amazing speaker this week. So I'll let you lead that in because you're so good at it.
So if you haven't noticed, me and Caroline, we just love on each other in a very interesting way. So if you're new to our show, I'm very excited because, I love creativity. I love when things go, well, I'm not going to put that out there to the universe that I love when things go sideways. I like when the universe surprises me. I like, it's kind of, we're the beginning of a new time, new era right now, in business and in the year. It's the beginning of the year. And we're all kind of lining up our goals. We're like, I want to go this way and I'm going to make this money and I'm going to do it this how, and I'm going to connect with this person. And then there's this kind of thing called life. Some people call it universe. Some people call it God. Some people call it serendipity. Some people call it business partners like Caroline, and they take, there came the flower pot, and they take you down a different path, or something shows up. And I love about Anouk's story because, I love that kind of stuff. I live for serendipity. When you're going down the road, and all of a sudden, you see yourself going down in the road. And the beautiful thing is you couldn't have seen it. With your best intentions, you couldn't have seen it. It's all the stuff that you did in your, in preparation. And then you just turn left a little bit. And then there's something there, particularly the one thing I love about her story is the determination to not be that. I'm not going to be an entrepreneur. So I got to ask you, Caroline, has there ever been a time where you're like, I'm going down this road, or I really want this thing? And then, other than our relationship, and then something really creative or offside. I mean, this would be a great name, offside, right? Something offside happens. Yes. What do you think?
Well, I like how you just protected yourself right there and cut me off right away into what I was diving into, our relationship. No, I mean, honestly, everything in my life went sideways, and I wouldn't have it any other way, because it seems like when I make plans, it's just planning to make sure this won't happen. When I put it on paper and I'm like, this will happen, that's not going to happen. And I think it's just very important to have goals and plans, because it's like, putting your destination in a GPS, but then after everything that the universe throws at you, I call it the universe, realigns your projects, your goals, what you're going to accomplish, what you're not going to accomplish. And I've always went with the flow. And that's how, I ended up working with you. No, but, I am grateful because it did bring out some really, really good stuff. But there's one thing that I want to say, because you said it a few times already, and I hear it so much because we're at the beginning of a new year, and everyone is like, oh, new year, new you. I have to say I'm kind of tired of hearing that because, why do we always have to be a new person because a new year is starting? I like the person that I am. It's just that I'm going to improve some parts, but I mean, the mentality of always like we need to change because the year is starting again. I want that to drop. In 2022, you will not say that anymore. You will say the improve me. But okay, so thank you. That was so sidebar that we could even edit it out if we knew how to edit a show. but we don't, so it's gonna stay in. But yes, today we're gonna talk with Anouk Malaika Flambert that I absolutely love, and she is the perfect image of an international nomad. And I will let her tell a little bit about her story, and then we'll grill her with questions now. Welcome, Anouk.
Wow, thank you. Can I just say, listening to the two of you banter, I just had a moment of like deep emotion when I think it was Carol, I can't remember which of you said, how you wind up these places that you're like, I never thought I would go there. And I just had one of the, anyways, something just happened for me. I mean, I literally just finished doing grocery shopping and I'm sitting here and suddenly I'm very emotional. So thank you so much. It's a lot of fun to be with the two of you, and I'm really honored to have met and bumped into and whatever made our lives cross. So yeah, international nomad, that's me. I've often been asked, like, oh, so what's your lineage? Where exactly are you from? And I'm like, look, I'm an international nomad. If you've got an hour, I'll let you know. So yeah, quick background on me. So I'll give you the short version. I was born in Canada to a Haitian father and a Sri Lankan mother who were back in the 60s when the whole world was being reconstructed. They were living all over the place. They lived in Liberia. Apparently, I was conceived in Geneva. And born here, but then moved to Haiti when I was 2, did all of my formative years in Haiti, moved to Sri Lanka when I was 14, did my high school in Sri Lanka, studies in the US. After my master's, moved back to Canada, which was the only country that I could legally live in at that point because I was a Canadian citizen from birth. So like, I don't know what else to tell anybody, right? So international nomad, because you certainly can't say all that. And yeah, and in terms of like what got me just now when you were talking about journeys you never thought you'd wind up on, can I talk a little bit about that part of my journey with my business and what brought the three of us together anyways?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So because that was anyways, that's what coursed through me for a few seconds there. As I was telling the two of you a little earlier, I mean, I was one of these people who as a network marketer today, as somebody who has now become a somewhat annoying evangelist for entrepreneurship, especially for women, I spent most of my life until 6 years ago, maybe 7, literally telling people that I would never go into entrepreneurship. And I mean, I literally walked around saying that. And it's funny because when you're in this world that the two of you know so well, you constantly bump into women who are like, I always kind of knew like I was meant to create something. And I've always had that fiber in me. And I don't know, I was selling fudge bars in school when I was little. I swore that I would never, ever go into business for myself. So my father was an entrepreneur. My mother was someone who regretted never having gotten a serious degree, always felt that as a woman, as a South Asian woman especially, she was sort of pushed aside, never taken seriously at school. So she really instilled in me, her only daughter, get a good degree, make sure that you have a solid piece of paper behind you, get a good job, well-paying job, stability. My father's life had all kinds of ups and downs with his entrepreneurship, and I talk a little bit about that in our book. I don't know if we'll talk about that a little later. So yeah, so there was absolutely no way that I was ever going to become an entrepreneur. I got my master's degree as an economist, worked for 20 years in market research, and literally told people several times, I will never, ever do that. That's for crazy people. I'm way too risk averse. And then I had kids. Right? And we know what that does. So everything changed. I was one of these women who went back to school after having kids saying, I'm never, I'm a professional. High performance. I got it together. But, by the time my little guys were 3 and 5, I found myself coming home crying every day and decided, you know what? Something's got to give. So I actually decided at the time that I was going to quit my job just to stop crying. go home, regroup for 6 months. And then, I started kind of reaching to my old employers and saying, hey, if you have any backup work you need, if you have any contract work, I'll help. Like, I won't charge too much. It's okay, just whatever, because I was still trying to figure out what I want to do. And 2 years later, I had doubled my salary and, had this moment one morning when I looked at my bank account saying, you know what? Time to put on your big girl panties. Like, enough of this, what I'm not capable of. I think you have just become an accidental entrepreneur. So get over yourself, girlfriend, And I launched a consulting business that I ran successfully for 10 years. That's, yeah.
I'm just jumping in here because I love that. And you know what? There's one thing that you said that for me gave me goosebumps is you said when I had my kids. And I think this is one thing that we experience becoming a parent. And I'm not going to talk for fathers because I don't know how they live it, but for mothers, quite often we had goals and we had our life planned, and then we have our first and then our second, and we're like, everything changes. Everything, like the same thing happened to me when I had my son. I veered off and I did something else. But I mean, I love how it was accidental in your case. But during those 2 years, you must have gone through a phase at some point of saying, okay, I need to charge more, or I'm really a professional, or what I'm doing is really worth a lot. Because you said you started with, I'm not going to charge you too much. And
Mm-hmm.
So when did that happen? Just that morning that you looked at your bank account, or
Yeah.
something that really built in you saying like, I got this?
That's a really, really good question. And I actually have not thought back at that, at like what was the progression in there. I really think that because my resistance was huge. I mean, what I haven't mentioned, I mean, my father ultimately took his life in a moment where he had, just his final business failure kind of a thing. And so to me, like, entrepreneurship was not just, a bit of emotion, a bit of economic, financial ups and downs. I mean, it was like it was, potentially deadly endeavor, And so, but I know, I really didn't. I really think it was at one point, I think it was probably when I did my taxes and, because I wasn't looking at the money either, you're just like, oh my God, somebody wants to do business with me. Cool. I got a contract. Oh, you want to do business with me too? No way. I mean, I was lucky. I was in a profession where going out and doing consulting work was kind of a natural evolution of what I was doing in market research. And so I literally didn't until I think it was really when I got my taxes done. And I was like, oh, that was my gross last year. Like, hold on. Okay, enough, I think, and it was after that when I'm going to call it a eureka moment. There must have been, thanks for the question. One day I'll figure out what that moment was. But I then decided, you know what? I'm going to own that I am now a successful, independent private practice owner in market research. And I sat down, I got paid somebody to sit down with me and start to think I wasn't incorporated. I wasn't even a LLC or whatever. So I was like, I'm going to perhaps incorporate, give myself a brand name, get a logo, start to, put up my website, create something. I'm going to start to develop. I'm going to now create as opposed to get lucky. And it was in that process, sitting down and starting to define a brand that then, and I was doing market research. I thought, well, I do surveys and focus groups. And, the woman I was working with, fortunately, a woman also who I think knew how to like draw this out of me because it needed to be drawn out, was like, okay, I understand what you do. She's like, what's your essence? And I was like, essence? I'm a market researcher. She's like, no. Like, I need an essence. And so that's when I sat down and I was like, what is it about me? And at the time in my head, it was little Anouk that has made me able to generate this income without even realizing, what is that? And what I discovered, and there was a 2-year process in there of then taking ownership that now I'm going to go out and look for business and explain why you should do business with me and who I am. And in the process of defining my business, I discovered, and this was, I remember a moment when I realized, wow, I just on the basis of talents, I even now feel sheepish to call it that, talents, gifts, life experience that landed me in certain schools and then in certain companies that gave me certain experiences, stuff happened that made me a human resource with monetizable things contained within my body. And this is something that I share with women a lot, because I work with women who are afraid to charge what they're worth. For example, I think that's a big topic that speaks to me a lot. And it's just recognizing, in economics, we talk about human resources. You are a human resource like a gold mine or a factory with machines, like you produce value. And when you understand that, I had this moment where and this was after I got divorced, actually. So a few years into this, I get divorced at the same time that the financial markets crash. And, suddenly I'm like, oh my goodness, total financial panic. What am I doing? And that was when once I managed to get through that year, and extremely successfully, of course, surprised and, how did I do that? We're so crazy with our heads, I tell you, that I had a moment where I was like, if the entire world crumbled down around me tomorrow, within my body, I contain the capacity to feed my kids, feed myself, and create value to keep myself alive. I'm not dependent on a job. I'm not dependent on other factors. Like, I have resources in my cells. I mean, I'm saying it like it sounds a little crazy, but that's how deeply I felt it. And that was the thing that I never understood, that I swore to my ex-husband. I swore for a while to my current husband that I would never be an entrepreneur about. And I now understand. That moment was when I understood what my dad saw. Being an entrepreneur is recognizing you're a value object. You're a value factory, and you gotta go dig inside, figure out what those widgets are that you came here to create. And when you recognize yourself as a value factory, for a woman especially, where for all kinds of reasons, we tend to have dependency worked into our transgenerational inheritance in different ways, Oh my God. Choirs of angels kind of stuff. Anyways, sorry, I'm rambling.
No. So Anouk, I was just going to cut in there and say,
Yeah.
I mean, we're all part of a book, 20 Powerful Women in Network Marketing Tell All. And so we have all this compilation of these bits and pieces of these really amazing women, seriously, that have gone through, that's cathartic. What you just talked about, I think we went on that journey with you, right? So we all had our own cathartic moment, that time, that essence. And I think still you had this, you are part of this amazing circle of people that were working through the word powerful. And who am I to write this chapter? And what was this like for me, right? And so as we go through these levels, we need women like yourself that can go step up here. And then you're reaching above. So you're reaching up to someone above and going, I need to step up here. And we all go through this. The best word is cathartic experience of getting to that place of self-value and self-love, where there can be an exchange in the world as there is an exchange within ourselves, right? And it starts to change in the people that you attract, which is why we're sitting on this podcast today. But I know from sharing with you earlier that that's one of your heartthrobs around working with women. And you've gone into not only being an entrepreneur in the sector that you studied, but you also ventured off into a pretty interesting, for someone who didn't want to be an entrepreneur, I don't know if you could have gotten any crazier than getting involved in network marketing, because man, is that its own matrix. Not only is it working with women, it's working with men, it's working with women that have children, women that don't have children, men that, and it's a variety. It gets a variety. And I know that you have this heart about working with women, obviously, because you had it and you've had to overcome some really ingrained messaging that you told yourself in relationship to your father. So there's your own journey, of which we have, but you have this beautiful way of redefining that for people. And I know that we talked about the word immigrant and how you have really redefined that. And that is one of your pockets that you're really looking to work with. Why don't you explain a little bit of that to us? Because when we hear those words, we think different things depending on where you come from. And I know that you have an international business and that your impact is international. So you're working within that culture diversity of verbiage and what have you. So define for us something that is really more what you want to see happen.
Yeah. And I'll just to start with, in my business, I mean, I have people from all walks of life. I work with men, I work with women, I work with people who are born in Canada and the US who are not immigrants. And the idea of really focusing in on immigrant women. And again, actually, let me just do this bracket now, because I'm going to have to say immigrant again, because I haven't found a better word. I don't like the word immigrant because it makes people think about like poor people, refugees or whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about they can be that as well, but immigrant is the scores and scores and scores of people that most of us are surrounded by who are first generation, essentially. So whether you came here younger for school, or whether you came here for university, or whether you came as an adult with your kids, on whatever basis you came, I think what we have in common, although immigrant obviously covers all kinds of cultures. I mean, they're French immigrants from France, right? But what we have in common is landing in a place where you don't have a support network. In terms of immediate family, or maybe you'll acquire it later. But starting your life like that means that there are a number, among other things, of we don't have transgenerational wealth typically when you're a first generation immigrant. So your parents were going to, leave you a legacy of a house, or your parents are going to help you move into college. I mean, when I moved to the States, I moved with 2 suitcases, and that was the most I ever brought from my past when I was 19. And I turned up on campus, and I had, people coming up with 2 minivans of aunts and uncles and stuff to fill their dorm rooms, right? So that's just my little segue. Okay, so immigrant, I want to just expand that idea. But the idea is people who are here as first generation, there's a pioneer mentality that comes with being the person who has the courage to do that, as well as this enormous need, because we basically have to set up the beginnings of what's going to become a transgenerational wealth for our families. So that's my little bracket that, right? But to get back to your question, I mean, for me, at one point in my business, and one of the things I love about the way we work in network marketing is just like that consultant that I worked with who told me, get back to the essence. We do a lot of work on making sure that that we know our purpose, because most of the people we work with, and this is true for me up to today, this is a side hustle, or it's something that we're doing alongside the other things we're doing. So the motivation has got to be there, because everything else when you get started is more important. So at one point I was doing one of those exercises, came back to a number of things, including a dream I had had once when I first moved here. But very clear to me that given my experiences, and I've kind of been lucky, and I've actually absolutely been lucky. I had a Canadian passport from birth, so I didn't have to actually immigrate. When I finished with college and found out that this was the only country I could legally live in, it was a pretty cushy country to move to. So I was set, but I had left when I was 2. I had nothing here, so I just moved. I was in Florida at the time. I was like, I'll look up on a map. We didn't have the internet back then. I was like, I heard there's Montreal and Toronto. Let me pick one of those and, let's go. Let's make it happen. But I don't even remember where I was going now with this. Finding purpose, network marketing. Where was I?
Well, we were talking about... No. And that's the beauty of it, right? So I think what we were really asking is your expression of that. And I think you nailed it down, where you have an experience with people that they don't have all of that support around them. And one of the things that you're able to, because of that experience, is take people into an arena like network marketing and be able to help define for them what it is their why, part-time, side time, part-time, side gig, full-time, and to help them put their why to a means of financial means, and put those together so they can build whatever that looks like for them, whether it's their wealth for the generational family or what have you. And me and Caroline were talking about that yesterday. I'm sure, Caroline, you could share about, we were doing an amazing interview yesterday about how we've all had our own experiences of having to venture out on our own. And that's what I really hear you talking about. Caroline moved to Vancouver and didn't know anybody. Ironically, I moved to Montreal and didn't know anybody, got robbed my very first day because I was dumb and left my stuff in the car. And, those experiences that you have that makes you feel lonely. Yeah. It makes you feel like, I don't have anybody. And you have to get really deep in your soul and the loneliness or the homesick or where am I going to go next? And having people that can just really help us. Caroline, we were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah, and my only reply right now is like, why am I not surprised you got robbed the first day? Sorry. So back to being a little serious. I think that one of the big things that, you were going towards, Anouk, is that one of your mission is to help immigrant women, which the whole discussion started there between you and I about the immigrant. He said, you know what, no, guys, I need to redefine this word. So the way you're saying it is so, for me, it's enlightening. It's appropriate. And I think that we don't see it necessarily with the eyes of an immigrant or someone who moved a new country because we don't know. So you can't know what you don't know. Because like even me, when I moved, it was still within my country. It seems like it was another country, but it was still, I didn't fight all of the, what a lot of people that will go to a new country have to fight. And what I love about hearing you explaining it is that, wow, it actually really described the strengths that you need to do that. And yes, even when you said you become a pioneer, it's so true because you need to be a pioneer. You need to start on your own and, be alone. So that's where you were going into. You really want to help women because you also have a passion for women empowerment with your network marketing business. And I will let you take it from here.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing me back. But I want to segue from that as well. For me, it's immigrants because that's been my story. And growing up as I am beginning to grow up, I'm embracing again, like all of the parts of me that have made me wind up where I am. And one of the big things behind my choosing a focus, which is immigrant women. And again, and you guys know, you work in network marketing, you'll work with all kinds of people, but you want one centralizing idea that's going to pull you. And I think this is true. It's not just network marketing, business in general. You need to figure out, and it'll change every year, why am I doing this? Because it's got to pull you forward. And for me, that's summarized by the phrase, be the reason, that I heard once. And the idea is, and this is true, you don't have to be an immigrant. This is true for the two of you and anybody who's listening. Each of us has been given a unique set of life experiences, and our life experiences give us the opportunity to, at some point, tell a story of overcome. And even sometimes some of us don't feel like we've overcome much. Sometimes it's a teeny little story of overcome, but it can be a huge story for somebody who's got something in common with your journey. And that has a lot to do with why I defined my purpose for me personally in doing my business as being to help 1,000 immigrant women discover the nature of financial independence that I discovered in that eureka moment I defined earlier, that I embody value that can keep a family alive. Because that was my journey. And I know that there are girls and women out there who I may never meet, who may hear my story long after I'm gone, who are going to be like, there's this one thing about my journey that they're like, oh, finally, somebody who's like me, who succeeded at something. And that's one of the things that I love having the opportunity through the type of work that we do to inject in people. It's like, yes, we all wake up, make coffee, get the kids to school, do lunches, come home, work, pay the bills, etc. And then at some point, not to sound morbid, but we're going to die, right? But it just makes no sense for that to be it. So it's like you came here to just throw a little seed forward on someone, and you may never even know who that is, but I feel like it's our purpose to find that part of our journey that is the reason for someone else to wake up one day.
I have to say that, bravo, because you've encapsulated what so many people have experienced, like you said, in the world of entrepreneurship, in the world of volunteership, in the world of passing it forward. I'm a big believer, I know we are, in kind of looking backwards and thanking the people that braved before us and we brave, and that we are actually in the middle of making change. We just don't really know, because in 20 years from now, they're going to look back and go, wow, that was cool. Or I read the story. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the book, is that there's this diversity of many different stories. And you're going to read it now and you're going to relate. And you're going to go, oh my gosh, that woman was amazing. And then you're going to read it in 3 months from now. You're going to go, oh, that woman's story was amazing, because we are always in a state of involvement, right? And so, like, bravo to those thought processes. If we were to kind of wrap up here, and it sounds like we are kind of wrapping up a little bit, you've made some really clear messages, straight through. I think there's been some bravery. I think you've shared that insight about your family and those little belief systems that you've had to overcome. I think you've had a wonderful experience of serendipity and not wanting to do something and then having something turn out to be pretty incredible due to things that you could not have foreseen, right? Due to things that you've not foreseen. So if we were to wrap up and kind of give you that last 2 seconds, raw, of what it is that you would like people to, how they'd like to first of all, get a hold of you. If they'd like to learn more from you, whether it's in the world of network marketing, whether it's just about inspiring, whether they are a woman of diversity, whatever that looks like for them, whether they want to be one of those 1,000 women that you work with. And even it sounds like you're still up to some pretty incredible market research. How would they get in touch with you? What could you finally?
So, one, I do want to say, I think everybody, even if you are not in network marketing or not contemplating network marketing, should get the book, 20 Powerful Women in Network Marketing Tell All. It is the women in that are extraordinary. I am floored to be part of that. And I can be reached at anoukmalaika.com. Do you have somewhere where you're going to share that?
Yes.
Because
we don't expect
nobody can spell my name.
That.
Right. So it's anoukmalaika.com. That's my alter ego name. That's the name I use when I put my 2 hands on my hips, So yeah, that's right.
I love it. And it's such a unique name, and it's funny because when I met you, you said, I'm Anouk Flambert. And then when we produced the book, you're like, can you add Malaika? And in my mind, I was like, why did she even leave it out in the first place? Don't ever. It's unique. It's beautiful. So yes, people can reach you. And you know what? It was a pleasure having you on. And I feel like what I really, really admire about you is that you seem to be so sure of your purpose and know exactly who you are and what you're worth. And I know it probably didn't come one morning when you got up. I know it's years and years and years of work, and it's probably still in progress. But what I'm really keeping from this interview is, how clearly and you explained the worth of our body, that we have all the worth, all the resources, that we are a resource in itself. And for me, that was a aha moment, honestly. So thank you. And I will let Deb and you close.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I love that. I'm like, I think that would be a great hashtag body value. It was like, just because it really just reminds you. I had the same hit, Caroline, because, me and Caroline talk about value all the time. We talk about our self-value. We talk about adding value, right? The world is really attracted to value because, like I said, we explore, and sometimes it's other people see it in ourselves, right? It's other people, or like for you saw it. Oh, look at that. Sorry. Whoop, someone else wanted to talk on Zoom. So it's about, you saw it on paper. You created value and you didn't even know you were doing it. Wow. And then you saw it on paper, then you owned it. So I love it. So I'm going to, we work on that all the time. And that's what we want to do in this podcast, is bring value, bring value, right? And that I think is the legacy piece. So thanks for that reminder. I'll let you sign off and say goodbye to our listeners and our viewers, and then we'll be meeting you at the party.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much. I'm very honored to have crossed your paths, and I'm looking forward to discovering, what this creates, just this meeting. So I love what the two of you are doing. Congratulations. And thanks for creating platforms for so many women to get our words out. So thank you. It's been amazing.
Thanks to you, Anouk, and thank you everyone for being here again this week with us. And you know what? When I don't know, Deb said something, and the idea came, like, don't hesitate to write us. I can't speak right now, but anyway, don't hesitate to write us and give us your suggestions, things you would love to hear about. Oh yeah, she said we want to bring value. Absolutely. Honestly, it's like I'm having such a great time doing these podcasts, and I personally learn every single time. But we also want to hear about, what do you want to hear about? Do you want to hear about how did Deb make it after the day she was robbed, or, stuff like that? Is she now locking her doors? And by the way, no. I'm not going to say where she lives, but anyway, did she learn a lesson from this? Like, all types of questions. If you have questions or want to hear about different subjects, please shoot us an email, and debandcarolyn@gmail.com. Can be easier than that. And Deborah, I'll let you close.
Well, as always, it's a pleasure being loved on by you, Caroline, and of course, meeting wonderful people. And honestly, I don't think there's anything else to say other than it's been a really amazing experience. As always, Caroline will be talking and interviewing again next week, an amazing woman. And Anouk, I too look forward to an extended experience with you from this point forward. So let's wrap it up, ladies. It's a wrap.